Four men have appeared in court in Russia, charged over the attack on a Moscow concert hall, which killed at least 137 people. This follows a day of national mourning in Russia, led by the country's president, Vladimir Putin, who has vowed to punish those behind what he called a barbaric terrorist attack. The so-called Islamic State says it was behind the assault, but the Kremlin has linked the attack to Ukraine.
Four suspects are facing terrorism charges for their alleged involvement in the attack at Crocus City Hall outside the Russian capital. Three were brought into court handcuffed and bent double by police officers. They were seated in a glass-fronted cell reserved for defendants. A fourth man arrived in a wheelchair. The so-called Islamic State has said it carried out the attack last Friday and posted video of the assault. Russian officials have claimed, without evidence, Ukrainian involvement. Kyiv dismisses the claim as absurd. Russia observed a day of mourning as flowers piled up outside the concert hall. Investigators said 62 victims have been identified, with DNA testing being used to identify others recovered from the burned site.
I was here and miraculously I managed to leave. We were sitting in front of the stage with my husband, so we were right there. We want to honour the memory of those left behind.
President Vladimir Putin visited a church and placed candles for the victims. Days before the outrage, Putin dismissed a US warning about an imminent terrorist assault. Barely a week earlier, Putin secured his fifth presidential term. The concert hall terror attack is damaging for a leader who portrays himself as able to guarantee order. However, with his authoritarian grip on power, and in the absence of anyone willing to challenge him, the Russian leader is unlikely to face any serious setback.
Let's go now to our Riga bureau chief, Yuri Risheto. He has been reporting from the Latvian capital since the Russian authorities shut down our Moscow bureau. Yuri, the men who appeared in court showed signs of having been beaten. What's known about their physical condition?
Yeah, right, Terry. All four accused men do not look healthy, to say the least. You can see bruises, blue marks on their bodies and swollen faces. One man came to court with his head bandaged, and this is probably the man who, according to one of the interrogation videos that has been circulating on social media, had his ear cut off. The other was unconscious and apparently didn't react to the court at all. He was carried into court allegedly directly from the hospital. Russian Telegram channels previously circulated a video in which one of the four men was presumably connected to an electrical device. If the video is true, then it's possible that at least these two men have been treated not very well, let's call it that way. The official story is that they were injured during the arrest.
So aside from the state of their health, what more have we learned about the suspects and their alleged motives, Yuri?
One of the accused persons is a 32-year-old citizen of Tajikistan and father of four minor children. It's said he is the oldest of the accused. The youngest is 19 years old. All four of them have confessed to the crime reportedly. They were formally charged under the article on terrorist acts. The maximum penalty for this crime is life imprisonment in Russia. The men are said to have acted not in their own name, but on behalf of others. One of the suspected persons on a video in the internet said he was in contact with a preacher via Telegram channels. These men allegedly came from Turkey immediately before the attack. He spoke broken Russian in one of the interrogation videos and said that he had been promised 500,000 rubles, which is an equivalent of 5,000 euros.
Now, President Putin, Vladimir Putin, has implied that Ukraine was somehow involved, Yuri. How is the attack being reported in Russia?
The Russian media, I would say, seems to be a bit split between the very obvious evidence of the so-called Islamic State that could be behind this attack and the so-called Ukrainian lead that President Putin mentioned in his televised address at the weekend. Putin spoke of a certain possibility of escape that Ukraine had allegedly offered to the terrorists. His explanation was that the men were caught near the Ukrainian border. We can clearly see that this alleged Ukrainian lead or trace is now being used with all it might by the Kremlin and the state-controlled media in Russia to reinforce the official Russian version, the official Russian war narrative, which is all bad things would come from Ukraine.
Yuri, thank you very much. That was our Riga bureau chief, Yuri Rishetto.